Hi. Um, so I'm coming to talk about, well, I think I'm going to talk about relationship this morning. Um, Bearing in mind that everything is in relationship. We always are in relationship to something, um, whether it's to our parents, to our children, to our partners, to our colleagues, to our work itself, to the physical work that we do, to money, to power, um, to nature, to Mother Earth. We are in relationship to it. Um, we don't exist outside of relationship, right? So when I refer to relationship, I am measuring it first and foremost from my relationship, um, let's just say with people. But you can you can really apply the principles of relationship to anything. Um, Adrian Abke, he's a spiritual thought leader. He talks about coming into loving relationship with everything. Um, and that's really what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve a loving relationship with everything, including yourself. And the work of coming into a loving relationship really starts with yourself. Maybe I should just make a disclaimer that when I talk about relationship, I do focus, at the moment, I am focusing a lot on relationship in partnership. And like, I just want to say that it's no reflection on anybody else's relationship. What I did find was that when people shared, there was a specific person in my life that showed me her life and her relationship. And for a long time while she was doing it, I was in resistance to actually seeing my own life. She came as a mirror for me to be able to awaken to my own relationship. Um, and eventually, I'm going to say she helped me to break open. She didn't try. She was looking for help from me. That's all she was doing. And when she would come to me and seek help, I felt a little bit triggered, I suppose, by it. I didn't understand why she was coming to me. And I helped because it's like I didn't have a choice. But fundamentally, what eventually started happening was that I started seeing my own life through her experience. And there was a level of disempowering that started fading. Disempowering. I felt very disempowered for a long time in the relationship that I was in. Look, so I'm not here to blame anybody for the life that I've lived. I know that I don't get to the place where I am today without the life that I've lived. So I'm in deep appreciation for the life that I've lived, the hardships included. But there were hardships. And I do believe that, the hardships are necessary for our growth. And so I can come into deep appreciation for the hardships that I've endured. I don't have to sit in a state of blaming myself or another person for the life that I've had. Now, that's strange because it's like, what does it mean to know that I was mistreated? And I'll use that word boldly. I was mistreated, but I don't have to lay blame necessarily. I can come to it with a level of neutrality. How do I come to this place? And I ebb and flow. So I'm not always in a state of neutrality. But because of my awareness, I'm able to come back to a state of neutrality, to be grateful again for the experience that I had. Because without the experience, I would not have grown into this version of myself. A wise version of myself. I flow with wisdom at the moment. I know I do. I see life a lot more clearly than I've ever seen life before. And it's the gift. The lesson was always there to be learned. When I was ready to learn the lesson, I learned the lesson and I passed the test. And my reward is that I can see life more clearly, my own life. What I do realize is that we do have a collective we have collective experiences. For the longest time, I felt so disempowered because I felt so alone in the experience that I was having. And when this individual came into my life and started showing me her life, she was showing me that we are not experiencing life alone. We are not having completely unique experiences. I can only experience it uniquely, but we have collective experiences. And when you start expressing or listening, you realize that, but I can identify with this experience that you're having. Why does it feel so familiar to me? You know? And again, I say, I know that not everybody has romantic, I'm saying romantic, relationship difficulties. Sometimes your difficulty is with your mother. Sometimes it's with a sibling. Sometimes it's with a colleague. Sometimes it's with money, more intangible things, right? So I'm not trying to say that listen to me because you must probably going through what I'm going through right now in my relationship, trying to get out of the thing that I've been in for so long. But there are lessons, and also there are ways in which we have normalized ways of being in relationship that I think we can all learn and grow from. One thing I want to bring to the fore today is how we treat each other and how we get treated, and what we have accepted as normal in how we get treated in relationship, how we treat and how we get treated. Now, I grew up in a home where my father was an extremely, one would have called him strict, right? And when you fall under the umbrella of being a strict parent, you can, I suppose you can get away with a lot in terms of keeping a very tight leash, a very short leash on your family. We got given lots of hidings and we were scolded a lot. Now, when I say a lot, I don't mean once a week. This could be daily. We got scolded almost daily. The potential of getting into trouble was always an option, always a possibility, always a possibility. When you grow up in a home like that, you normalize being shouted at. You normalize being given hidings as a standard. To the point in which you start to justify it on behalf of the person who potentially had a very short temper, didn't do enough healing work, and took his frustrations out on his family because he was himself wounded by his life. I loved my father very, very much. I admired him greatly. He was clever, well articulated. He had a presence about him. People, you either liked him or you hated him, right? But I admired my father a lot. I am a lot of who my father was. I know. I don't hit my children. I don't shout at my children. I give myself that much. But my father was a wounded man, and hurt people. And we were hurt by him, mistreated by him. May his soul rest in peace. You see, he's most there, he's here. So I also believe that, I no longer believe that he's just gone. I believe that he's here. His name has come up for me. His initials have come up for me many times over the last few weeks. And I feel as if he's guiding me. And as I say this, I have tingles on my head. I feel as if he's guiding me, and he wants me to say this. Because it is part of how we see where we come from, and we can bring healing to where we are right now, and we can bring healing to the generations past. The reality of it is, why would you hit a child? Why would you shout at a child? Because every part of my being right now is kind of going, I normalized it for a long time, which means I could sit in a relationship where I was mistreated and not even know it. Because what I had normalized was so violent almost Violent, hidden behind religion. Spare the rod, spoil the child, he used to say. Oh, and he could wax it lyrical. He had all the words and all the poetry and all the verses from the Bible. He was a fucking cool man. Eccentric motherfucker. That he was wounded. And so I say this with a lot of love. Hurt people hurt people. But because of what I had normalized, I couldn't see how I was being mistreated and how my children were being mistreated right here, right now. To be shouted at. Okay? To be spoken abruptly to. To be made to feel as if your opinion never matters. To be treated rudely. So yeah, I get treated rudely. And then when I want to defend myself, the response is almost like I have no right to respond to defend myself because the rudeness was justified. Rudeness is never justified. Actually, rudeness is a choice. Rudeness is a choice. People who are rude know that they are being rude. Because the same people who can be rude to you now will turn around to somebody in a moment and not be rude to them. It's a choice every single time. But your conditioning can keep you in a state of such confusion. The conditioning, plus the fact that if you are with somebody who is, let's just say, narcissistic, then there's a game at play, an energetic game at play. And if you are empathic and you come from a place of being abused and so you're vulnerable, you don't even know. I'm speaking about myself. Until you know. And then the game is afoot. Rudeness, to shout at your children, to shout at your children's mother or father, and then to act as if the next time you talk to them, you're nice. And then, considering how rude you just were, now you're nice, and now you expect them to just be nice to you. And if they're not nice to you, you act as if you are the victim of their frustration and anger because of how rude you just were to them. What is that? I asked AI. So I wrote in AI, this is the scenario. Somebody's rude to you. They speak to you abruptly, in an ugly tone of voice. They're unreasonable. They frustrate you. There's an altercation. They don't allow you to express yourself. And then moments later, they speak to you in a nice tone of voice and they expect that you engage them from that level of engagement. Right? Nice. Come on, speak nicely now. As if what just happened never happened. And if you don't, you automatically are poked at as, why are you so rude? Considering that just before that, there was rudeness. I asked AI, what does this scenario sound like? And AI gave me, I didn't use the word abuse. I didn't use the word gaslighting. I just kind of explained the scenario. And AI responded with all of those. Emotionally abusive, narcissistic, gaslighting. I was like, AI doesn't know me. Maybe it does. If you're unsure of, I'm going to say, this is how I'm exploring it at the moment. I'm just like, I was too scared to Google anything around relationships for a very long time because I kind of knew that I would find an answer that I couldn't face. Now, I'm kind of sitting in it. I'm just like, I am liberating myself. I am liberating myself. Nobody's giving me permission. I don't need anybody's permission. Nobody can give me permission. Only I can. And I'm having conversations with something as neutral as AI. Because if I try to have these conversations with human beings are conditioned to cover up for energies, authoritarian energies in the family that have taken on these roles. They've taken on the roles of authority because we live in a patriarchal society. And we have just given them a lot more scope than they have earned. And what they've done with the scope is they've chosen to mistreat their families. Not everybody. If this is not your story, then you can release this. Don't hold it. Don't assume I'm talking about you. But if you are triggered by this, maybe you should look at it a little bit more closely. Okay? But if this is not your story, and you are only empathizing with me, and you are feeling for me, and you're kind of going, shit, you, I'm sorry that this has been your life, and you can move past it, then I'm not talking to you. Maybe you can apply this to a different kind of relationship. Maybe it's not your partnership and your relationship with your father. And that is fine. But I know that we go through collective experiences. And so if this is your story, drop me a DM. Come we have coffee. Come we talk. Liberate yourself from your oppressors. Nobody should be allowed to speak to you in an ugly tone of voice, consistently, where you are not able to express the fact that you don't like it and it makes you feel shitty, without it ending up being a big fight about how you are too sensitive because we're just supposed to take it. I call bullshit.